we got ourselves some Hamaguchi news, and again, this is extremely crazy because like all these news, all this information is coming at us pretty quickly. But anyways, we just had a wild weekend of Tifa being a Street Fighter character now. We have the revelation. We have the revelations, Final Fantasy Revelations being announced for next year, and we have Hamaguchi explaining that it's going to be leading to a singular ending, which is really good because, if I understand it correctly, and I do my best to understand most Final Fantasy content correctly, like during remake and rebirth, both games have slightly altered pathways from the golden timeline that we had from 1997. 1997, Final Fantasy came out, and during the remake, we've had the 5 hours of content that was in the beginning of Final Fantasy become a 40-hour experience in Final Fantasy Rebirth, in remake, and in Rebirth, we have that entire moment, I believe, until the very end of Disc 1. Disc 1 being where I believe, and I can't be wrong, Disc 1 ends with the passing of Aerith. So it's incredibly wild of like the progression that we've gone has been extreme, and it feels like a 300 gigabyte game when we look at Final Fantasy Revelations being the end, being the trilogy that is this game. But anyways, I'm rambling more than the post suggests. So let's just like start reading it, and then I should look at a little bit of the article from what is it, Games Raider. He actually no. Let's pull that up just in case, because he says this goes without saying, but our heroes, Cloud and his companions, are beloved by a lot of fans around the world. Again, we see Max screaming about Tifa being a Street Fighter now. But when we thought about that, we didn't want just kind of deliver a singular storytelling experience for every single character player of the world. We wanted each player, each fan, to have a unique experience as they head on to the final battle. There will be some moments where some players will be faced with choices. Okay, so maybe. So what I feel from that is like, well, let me keep reading. The story moment where it shows their resolve as they head into this final battle that determines the fate of the planet. That's going to change a bit between players based on the choices that they made throughout the game. The idea is to kind of challenge the approach and the depth of the story, of these story moments of these characters for the final battle, final chapter. Okay. Let's go to the actual article. Let me see. Yeah, I didn't want to limit. Square Enix didn't want to limit the final part of the trilogy to a singular storytelling experience. Big choice. All the games be executed on stage. It was actually funny though, because it's extremely funny that at the time of its announcement, what was it? Let me see if I can't. God fucking damn it. Okay. I'm playing with the camera. I'm playing with this more than I should. Turns out it'll offer sections of play. It'll offer a section of player's choice that affects how the story plays out. But the team is committed to a singular version of the JRPG's long-awaited ending. So, okay. So, what it sounds like is I have to, for whatever reason, I have to I compare it to Persona, and the reason why I'm comparing it to Persona is that what is it? Is because in Persona games have a singular ending, but does that mean you can deepen relationships between characters? Because I can see a situation to where you would, um, what was it? You play the game, and Cloud has an option to do none of the side quests and only the main missions. I can see a situation to where you can play as Cloud and the team through main mission quests only, and you'll get a surface layer of their relationship by the time you finish the game. But if you do all the side quests, you do all the job posts, and there may be some side quests that will deepen relationships between Cloud and friends, Tifa and friends and friends. You may get a more fully fleshed out game towards the end of it. You may get a chance to where you may resolve some a subplot that each character has. Like for example, there was a subplot with Barrett and Dine, I believe, where in the original game and in Rebirth, there's a side. I don't know if it's a main quest or a side quest. I'll be playing the. I plan to play Rebirth before this comes out, right? But I'm wondering if I don't know yet. I know that we have an interaction with Dine, who has a backstory between Bear and Marlene, and I'm wondering if that's a side quest, because if there's a chance that in Rebirth you have a chance to miss that interaction entirely, there may be a chance in this game to where there are interactions you will miss because you don't partake in side quests or partake in character missions. There's a chance that character missions and side quests will affect relationships that will give you less of a full story and just a surface level of the game, if that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to figure out, because that's why I think when it comes to Persona-esque, as Hamaguchi explains, there will be some moments where players will be faced with choices, so player choices, and based on those choices that they make, these specific moments where we see each character facing the final battle, and the story moments where it shows their resolve as they head into the final battle that determines the fate of the planet. Let me just take that out for a second. Boop. Okay. That's going to change a bit between players based on their choices that they made throughout the game. The idea is to kind of change the approach and the depth of these story moments for these characters in this final battle. We hope the players look forward to the moment of the game. And that's interesting because again, let me finish it at least, because if you go to Genki's post and you scroll down, you'll be able to read what I read. But very interesting, by the way. I'm excited by this whole premise. The director knows there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on how it ends of this third game. It's going to be the concluding chapter of this remake series. How it's going to play out is probably going to receive a lot of attention from our fans. I think a lot of fans are worrying or just being curious about how it's going to play out in the end. Obviously, the director isn't going to spill all the beans on that ending right now, but he was willing to confirm that the ending of the story is going to be a singular ending, unaffected in any concrete way by the choices you make during the adventure. That makes a lot of sense, because when you look back at Remake, for example, in Remake you get one singular ending, which is the fight against Sephiroth, in the fates of in the will of fates, or like the spirit of fate, the specters of fate, and there are slightly there are slightly difference there are slight differences between multiple gameplays, right? To where let me look that up, because you can either have an interaction with Tifa, with Aerith, or with Barrett, before we do the climb of Shinra's tower, right? So there's an instance where like there's like, I believe, a relationship meter that you fulfill throughout the game in Remake, where ultimately, if you do enough interactions with Aerith, you will get to speak with Aerith's Spectre before the climb to Shinra's tower, right? And then you get, oh, let me see, let me look for YouTube. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Aerith, Tifa, Barrett, scene. Yeah, here it is. Cause like, there's a reason why there could be not one person will have the same experience in Remake, for example, and we're gonna definitely see that experience in Remake and Rebirth when we play it on the channel, and Revelations, because choices do matter throughout the franchise, right? For this example, I got this Tifa resolution scene with this game in particular, but when it comes to some of my friends have had the Aerith scene in this instance during the resolutions in chapter 14, and my friend Michael, he had the resolution scene with Barrett. I don't know how you got the Barrett scene, and I don't know how you got the Aerith scene, but I made enough choices to get the scene with Tifa, and then a friend got an Aerith resolution scene. So that's like, that in itself is pretty crazy. But let me see what else Genki has to say. That might mean some players might have different emotion as they get to the story's ending, so that's kind of the difference that they might have. And I feel like there's a good chance that people will get. There's definitely a situation to where this will allow people to have multiple gameplay sessions of this game, because there's one path to where there's main missions, no side quests, no character quests, and you get the surface level of what Revelations has to tell you. But if you do enough side quests, and if you do enough character quests, you're gonna see some resolutions that comes from all these main characters, and even the wing itself. There's so much to digest when it comes to this content, and that is satiating in a way, to where there's a lot of content to have until spring 2027, which is funny, to where, like, if you look at this box art alone, there is a situation where there's a specific reason why Aerith and Zack are on opposite sides of the box art. There's a specific reason why, for whatever reason, Sephiroth's wing, voiced by Travis Willingham, that's pretty cool. His wing looks more spectral than anything else, because if we look at hold on, let me see. Because if we know Sephiroth, we know Sephiroth has a feathered wing here, even in his final form, which we'll see, and we will see this version of Sephiroth and that during the end of Revelations. It's incredibly crazy. We're excited to see it. Even in Kingdom Hearts, it's feathered. We get a feathered black wing that comes from the experimentations of Genova, and we know this is the right wing of Sephiroth, right? The left wing has been produced and been made like apparent when you see Angeal or if you see Genesis, which are also experimentations of Genova, and we haven't covered it on the channel yet because I haven't played Crisis Core in a fat minute or finished it. I haven't finished it. I know the story of Crisis Core, but I should play it, right? I should play Crisis Core. But every depiction of Sephiroth has a right wing that's feathered. We fight him in a feathered state, I believe, during what is it? During Rebirth. And I believe Remake had his feathered wing, and Rebirth may have him. I believe we fight Sephiroth with a winged wing, right? That's what I'm understanding. But we see this instance of him having a more spectered wing. So what we're trying to figure out is that there is a chance that this Omega Omni version of Sephiroth is a more ultimate person trying to like he has a big plan that like is the word obfuscate? I don't know if the word is obfuscate, but it's an overwhelming like umbrella of what his true plans are, because again, I will be able to flesh out what I'm thinking about when we play more Final Fantasy Rebirth, because for whatever reason I chose not to, because I usually listen to story cutscenes when I'm at work for video games that I haven't had a chance to play. This game and Resident Evil Revelations have been Resident Evil Requiem have been games I have not spoiled myself with, even though I can be spoiled. Like, I don't officially know the story beats of Rebirth, but I'm excited to play through it. I'm excited to see me in a situation where when we find out the dualities between Aerith and Zack within Cloud, it's really exciting. I'm really excited to see I'm really excited to see how this game ends, because if it ends in a way that's directly similar to 1997, that's kind of good. You know, that's kind of great that's still it ends. There's a chance of the game ending in the same place that the original game has ended in 1997, or there may be a situation to where we get the true ending, and that's the kind of ending where Aerith wants Sephiroth to be done and dealt with, to be like perfectly gone, because at the end of Final Fantasy VII, I don't believe some things were originally resolved, which led into Final Fantasy Advent Children. And in Advent Children, we see a movie where it deals with Geostigma, with Kadaj, and the three remnants of Sephiroth. And then there's like the whole situation with Geostigma and the big fight that led into Sephiroth's revival at the end of the movie. And then he was defeated by Cloud. And then we get Dirge of Cerberus, where where Vincent Valentine was his own protagonist. We still dealt with the remnants of Shinra. We still dealt the remnants of what's it called? Let me see. What is it? Enemy FF7. FF7 Dirge of Cerberus. They were called Deep Ground, a secret Shinra military faction. So there could be a chance that we may deal with Deep Ground in this game as well, because during Intergrade, where Wtphu was the main character, Wtphu dealt with a what am I? There's so much to digest of this game, because in Intergrade, Wtphu deals with, after the events of Remake, Wtphu is dealing with the aftermath of Cloud and friends leaving Shinra, I believe, leaving Midgar, I believe, and she's facing Deep Ground. She faces an early version of Whis, and it's crazy, to where, actually, I don't know. Let me see. There's a Whis fight, I believe, in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it's definitely telling where things are out of place, because Whis as a boss doesn't make sense if you know how the original 5 hours, 10 hours of Final Fantasy Remake plays, right? Of the original 1997 game, the first 5 or 10 hours, you shouldn't have. There is actually no specific scene where you interact with Whis, but Whis. Let me pull up who Whis is, because Whis is crazy, right? If I can just Whis is a super boss in Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, available in Chapter 17. In the simulator, in hard mode, after completing the intermission, the Immaculate One. He is named the Immaculate One. But again, it's crazy to where we may get a resolution with this too. There's so much to unpack when it comes to Final Fantasy Revelations, because I don't believe we deal with Deep Ground in Final Fantasy Rebirth. Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Do we deal with Deep Ground? We don't deal with Deep Ground in Final Fantasy Rebirth, because it focuses exclusively on the journey across the open world outside of Midgard. The main story does not feature the Deep Ground faction. Their narrative is isolated in Intergrade and Dirge of Cerberus. So there's a high likelihood that we'll have to deal with Deep Ground in Revelations, because we didn't deal with it during Rebirth. There's no DLC that we know of that is involved with Rebirth, and Deep Ground is a organization that Wtphu and Vincent deals with, because if I remember correctly, in the beginning of Dirge of Cerberus, you get a cutscene with Vincent and Wtphu dealing with this facility, and then Dirge of Cerberus happens, right? So that is the craziest thing. This is me rambling about Final Fantasy content that I enjoy. That there's a lot to digest, and I have plenty and many of ways to deal with it. And sometimes the way to deal with it is with YouTube content, to where I just record myself rambling and just dealing with it as things are. Oh my god, there's also hold on, let me look up what am I thinking of? Dirge of Cerberus, Genesis. There's still a whole thing with Genesis that we have to deal with, right? Because, spoiler alert, when we finish what is it? Final Fantasy Crisis Core and Crisis Core Reunion, you fight Genesis. Genesis has its character ending, and for whatever reason, we see a secret ending in Dirge of Cerberus where Genesis somehow is revived, and somehow Genesis picks up the body of Whis, who is defeated in Dirge of Cerberus, and then they fly up. They fly up and out, and we never see them again. We don't see them again during any other future content because, according to the Golden Timeline, that is Final Fantasy VII, we get Final Fantasy VII, and then Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, and then Dirge of Cerberus, and then nothing else. Because for the Final Fantasy fans, we don't know what it means for Genesis to be revived. Is he a polar opposite to that of Sephiroth? What did that mean? Because at the end of Advent Children, Sephiroth will choose to never be a memory, and so he is going to be a reoccurring villain throughout the rest of Cloud's life, as far as I know. But then now we have, in that same Golden Timeline, we have Genesis, who just came back, and the person who defeated him, Zack, he's dead. But Genesis is alive again. He flies off with the body of Whis, and then for whatever reason, we don't get a resolution of that at the end of the Golden Timeline, right? So, hold on, let me see. Let me just pull that up. This is a spoiler, but sure. Yeah, so this is the ending to the end of the Golden Timeline. Hold on. This is the end of the Golden Timeline where Dirge of Cerberus happens after the events of Final Fantasy Advent Children. Whis is defeated because we fight Whis in Final Fantasy Remake after the episode with Integrate with Wtphu. And again, for whatever reason, this weird thing happens. Yeah, so for whatever reason, we fought Whis during the end of Dirge of Cerberus, and then for whatever reason, Genesis comes back. We don't get this revolution. Let me just super speed this. So we have Genesis pick up Whis for whatever reason, right?
It is not yet time for slumber.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. His voice was so fast.
It is not yet time for slumber. We still have much work to do. My brother.
Yeah, okay, so now you're telling me Whis is the brother of Genesis is the Whis is either Genesis is Whis' brother, or he says brother in terms of people who have been affected by the Genova program. Right? And then we have the left wing we have his Genesis's left wing, and he is directly parallel to Sephiroth's right wing. He brings out the wing that he brings out the opposite wing that Sephiroth has. Goes up, flies away. And that's all of the, and that's how we end for whatever reason. And for whatever, we don't get we do not get a resolution to that, because there is no game after Dirge of Cerberus, right, where we resolve this situation. So we may see that when we play Revelations. We may not. Do we resolve? Is there a game after FF7 Dirge of Cerberus? And the answer is no direct console game sequel to Dirge of Cerberus. It currently remains the final chronological chapter of the Golden Timeline. Again, do we see that in the next game? I don't know, but I'm extremely excited if we do. Again, I've yapped more than I should. I should go to work. I'll talk to you guys later.